The 1990s was a very interesting decade in Formula One up and down the grid. Williams rose to new levels of world domination in 1992 and 93, and again in 1996 and 97. The Benetton team won their only championships ever in 1994 and 95 with their golden boy Michael Schumacher at the helm, and both McLaren and Ferrari recovered from mid-decade slumps, including a staggering near 4-season win drought that the Scuderia endured from the 1990 Spanish Grand Prix to the German event in 1994. Both the Woking and the Maranello outfits recovered to fight each other for titles, with Schumacher and Hakkinen often competing in a who had the biggest balls competition every time they raced on track, providing an insane spectacle. In a stark contrast to the likes of Senna, Prost, Mansell or Mika though, the 1990s saw a dramatic upturn in the amount of small teams entering the sport and pay drivers subsequently keeping them on the grid, until these competitors eventually died out, usually after 2 or 3 seasons. The likes of Life, Coloni, Andrea Moda, Venturi, Fondmetal, Pacific, Simtech, Forti and Lola, and to an extent BAR, all graced the grid in their true form of awfulness, with none of them, bar the latter outfit that eventually derived into the modern Mercedes team, lasting longer than 2 years in the sport. Some stories, such as the woefully underprepared teams with deluded owners or sponsors like Life, Andrea Moda and Lola, have been told to death. Simtech is talked about in conjunction with the tragedy of Roland Ratzenberger's death, and Pacific kind of tags along with that tale. The rest who came and went were mostly buyouts of other near-defunct teams that went nowhere, and conveniently most were Italian. Along with the crap teams though, there was also a plethora of useless drivers. Guys such as Jean-Denis Delatraz and Taki Inui really pushed the argument that you have to be good just to get into F1 to its very limits, and bad characters like Riccardo Rossi have also been covered by the cliché F1 YouTubers. But in true me fashion, I'm going to shy away from overdone topics such as the stories of Inui, Delatraz or Rossit, and cover a driver that I think has gone mostly forgotten despite meeting the same criteria as those mentioned. Let me tell you the story of Giovanni Lavaggi.
Juan Manuel Fangio is in the lead on the last lap of the German Grand Prix.
Jim Clark drives the Formula One Lotus Sport to victory on the racetracks of the world.
And look at that! Out that, and colossally, that's Mansell! That is Nigel Mansell! Alain Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately! This is amazing! Senna goes off at the first corner!
And I've got to stop, because I've got a lump in my throat.
Giovanni Lavaggi was born on the 15th of February 1958 in Augusta on the Italian island of Sicily to a noble family. Despite taking a passing interest in racing as a child, and his dad also competing in competitions such as the 3 Hours of Syracuse, his father didn't wish the same prospects for his son, as he was only a gentleman driver and not a professional. Thus, he didn't see the plaudits of training to become a full-blown race car driver and focused his children down the path of education instead. After graduating from a degree in mechanical engineering at Milan Polytechnic in 1984, Giovanni immediately began his career as a driver, despite the fact he was starting out at the age of 26, by which time lots of his competitors may have spent 15 or more years in karting or competing in other forms of racing to gain experience. Due to his dad's disapproval of professional racing, Giovanni had to find his ascent up the junior formulas himself. After attending the Henry Moreau driving school, the Irishman claimed Lavaggi was the best student he'd ever had, which was quite a compliment because he'd overseen the careers of such stars as Elio De Angelis, Eddie Cheever and Andrea De Cesaris. Okay, maybe that last one is a pretty easy bar to clear, or crash into if you're De Cesaris. Nonetheless, after going to this driving school, he drove for Ermoli in the 1984 Italian Formula Panda Championship, where it is claimed he finished second in the standings with the most wins of anyone, although I can't find any evidence of this supposed series even existing, never mind finding results to back up Lavaggi's Wikipedia page. He then competed in 2 races in Italian F3, also during 1984, but didn't score any points. He continued in the series part-time through 1985 where he raced 6 times, and again in 86 where he appeared twice but still failed to score any points. For 1987, Lavaggi made a career switch from junior open-wheelers to sports cars as he competed in the World Sports Prototype Championship, essentially Group C cars that raced at Le Mans. He did 2 races, to no great success, scoring zilch, again for the likes of small manufacturers like Alba and Badadon. Then in 1988 he moved to the Porsche Works outfit, racing 4 times, amassing 20 points and finishing 37th in the season standings. You've got to start somewhere, I guess. The year after, despite taking part in one more race and taking the first verified completely unmistakable podium of his career at the 480km of the Nürburgring, he scored 3 less points than the year prior and moved up to 25th in the standings. He competed for Porsche unsuccessfully at Le Mans 2, then in 1990 was unable to score points in the Sports Car Championship and finished 19th at Le Mans. However, along with that campaign, he also drove in Interserie, finishing 5th in the championship, taking second places at the Hungaroring and Österreichring, the latter of which in many online results sheets was wrongly attributed as being the Zeltweg circuit just down the road. Then during 1991, after having gone through the Italian junior ranks and moved on to endurance racing later on, Lavaggi went full circle and started competing in open wheelers again, this time in International F3000, the final step before F1, at the very young age of 33. He drove the first 5 rounds for Krypton Engineering, failing to qualify in Vallelunga, Po, Jerez and Mugello before retiring at Ennepegusa. He then moved to the Ronnie team, where he saw out the rest of the season, failing to qualify for another 4 races in Hockenheim, Rantzach, Spa and the Le Mans Bugatti circuit, before getting his only finish of the year at the last race in Nogaro with 12th. He then moved back to his comfort zone of endurance racing in 1992, taking second places in the Le Mans 24-hour race alongside Manuel Reuter and John Nielsen, before winning Interserie in 1993, taking 6 wins and 10 total podiums from 12 races. Despite his shuffle back to closed cockpit racing the year prior, Lavaggi had done a test with the flailing March team in Formula 1, and following his Interserie title, he stepped back into open wheel cars by doing 4 rounds of the kart season in America in 1994, failing to qualify in Detroit, getting 30th in Cleveland and 15th in Road America, then failing to qualify again at the season finale in Laguna Seca. In the early part of 1995, Lavaggi took part in the Daytona 24-hour race and won it alongside Jürgen Lassig, Marco Werner and Christoph Bueschu, beating out the entire competition, including the 3rd place Ford Mustang Roush car, which was driven by NASCAR vice-champion Mark Martin. However, it was during 1995 that Giovanni embarked on the most memorable part of his racing career to most of the outside racing world. In Formula 1, at the start of the year before in 1994, 2 new teams, Pacific and Simtek, had come onto the grid, the first of which had lots of success in junior series, and the latter had overseen a failed BMW Works project that aimed to reach F1 earlier in the decade. Simtek went bust in early 1995 due to extreme debt, and that meant that Pacific were guaranteed to start every single race in the 24-car field. They were guaranteed to start before, they just have 2 less cars to contend with. Like their fallen counterparts, the British team was struggling for money and thus was looking for a pay driver to help balance the books. Lavaggi tested the PR02 chassis at Silverstone and Snetterton, then made his Grand Prix debut at the German Grand Prix, standing in for the driver and co-owner of the outfit, Bertrand Gachot. I bet Gachot was absolutely gassed to find he could make more money for the team and sprayed a bottle of champagne upon this realisation. Lavaggi came into F1 at the ripe old age of 37, the oldest rookie since Toshio Suzuki in 1992, who was 38, and he was the oldest driver on the grid despite having the least experience of anyone there in F1 machinery. At the race in Hockenheim, he qualified 24th and last, 1.1 seconds away from teammate Andrea Montermini, which wasn't a bad return considering his fellow Italian had driven the car the entire half season before that and had done testing along with a half race weekend in Spain in 1994 before breaking his legs in a crash in qualifying for that race. Lavaggi retired from that race though on lap 27 with gearbox failure, then in Hungary struggled as he qualified 2.2 seconds away from Montermini again in last before spinning off on lap 5. In changeable conditions on the Saturday session to set the grid in Spa, Giovanni managed to not qualify in the last position, but instead lined up in the penultimate spot, 4 seconds away from Montermini's time. He had gearbox failure on lap 27 again, just like he did in Germany, then in Monza returned to last on the grid, 1.8 seconds away from his unchanged teammate, and spun off on the 6th tour of the circuit. After his money had dried up though, Lavaggi was replaced by another pay driver, the even more inept Jean-Denis Delatraz, who made Giovanni's gaps to his teammate look like he was the second coming of Tazio Nuvillari. Giovanni stayed out of Formula 1 until the back end of 1996, when perennial backmarkers Minardi also needed a driver to bring in some money. His first race of the year came in Hockenheim again, and his teammate Pedro Lamy set a 1 minute 49.461. All Gio had to do was get in the ballpark at that time, maybe at maximum a second and a half away. The 107% time was also looming quite close, 1.7 seconds slower than Lamy. Surely though, with a few races under his belt, Lavaggi could get on the grid and qualify. Of course he didn't. He was 1.9 seconds behind his teammate and just under 2 tenths from the cut line to get into the race. Surely though, Hungary would be better. You know what? That's not bad. Only 7 tenths away from his teammate and just clear of the 107% barrier. He finally got his first classified finish in 10th place, having spun off on lap 69 of 77 in the race. And yes, he might have been 6 minutes and 10 seconds off the lead when he went off, but nonetheless, he got his first finish, technically. It was bad to reality in Spa when he was 1.8 seconds off Lamy and 2 tenths off getting into the race, meaning it was another did not qualify. He managed to qualify in Monza, only 9 tenths off Lamy, but his engine went only 5 laps into the race. The gap was 1.1 seconds in Lamy's home race in Estoril, although he still managed to get onto the grid nonetheless. Pedro though didn't get off the grid at the start and thus was 3 minutes off the leading driver Damon Hill at the end of lap 1. Throughout the 70 lap race, which both of them finished 5 laps down in, Giovanni was losing 2.5 seconds per lap to Lamy, and he eventually finished only half a minute ahead of his Portuguese teammate in the end. At the last race of the season in Suzuka, Lavaggi was 1.9 seconds away from Lamy and a second away from the cutoff for the 107% rule, and thus didn't qualify again. That was it for Giovanni's F1 career. By all accounts, he was just another lacklustre, pay driver typical of the 1990s, although he hasn't reached the levels of infamy that surround the likes of Taki Inouye, Jean-Denis Delatraz or Ricardo Rosset. This is probably because he didn't have a comedy of errors style career like Inouye did with the various course cars he was a magnet to, nor was he apocalyptically awful at driving like Delatraz or Rosset, nor was he a tosser like Ricardo was, nor a shady character who didn't pay the money he owed like Jean-Denis. He was just a watered down version of the three mentioned on track, and seemed to be well liked off it, with some articles pointing out how upon incumbent two-time champion Michael Schumacher finding out about Lavaggi's debut, he welcomed the Italian with open arms. I think part of the reason why Giovanni Lavaggi's lacklustre career isn't mentioned much is partly because it was just a bit uninteresting, but also because unlike the others, he didn't cause a stir on or off track, he just kind of got his head down and didn't make much noise. He was slow, yes, but he was harmless and didn't ruffle any feathers. His mechanical engineering skills meant that following his F1 career, he continued in endurance racing and developed his own eponymous chassis, the Lavaggi LS1, which raced in several events from 2006 to 2009, taking a pole position at the Vallelunga 6-hour race in 2008. Considering he only started racing at the same age that Michael Schumacher had become a two-time world champion, he did a fantastic job getting to F1 at all, and his lack of baggage that usually comes with being a pay driver of this era indicates that he was a bigger asset to the smaller teams than the likes of those I detailed before. I'm definitely not saying he was in any way underrated, but he probably should be remembered a bit more than he actually is. Anyways, with that being said, I think that brings today's video to a close. I hope you enjoyed me detailing the career of Giovanni Lavaggi, and if you did, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to see more content from me in the future. Big shout out to my Patreon subscribers Andy Lamberts, Eamon Al Dowdy and George Stratford, and if you'd like to get videos early or simply support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 or £1 per month. You can also follow my X or Twitter account, or whatever it's called nowadays, where I post scorchingly hot takes on F1, IndyCar and NASCAR, and you can also follow my Instagram accounts for behind the scenes updates. Both links are in the description below. Without further ado though, I'm Nedzo, and I'll see you all later. Bye!